they'll highlight the descriptions I want changing and email it me back. So now you basically got both my panels, my entire config file, basically in paper form, and you can print this out and you can actually put it in a file, or you can save it on a file in your PC or central PC. So it's got all my input outputs inside the panel. Are we using those? What we're using them for? All my text, all my devices, all my zones, all my labeling for panel 1. Then it moves on to my next panel, and so on and so on. The access codes, how many loops, how many zones are in use, and so on. All my text, all my labels, all my devices. So I think it's really, really useful. Any cause and effects that's being used, and so on. And like I say, you can save that. I think it's quite handy to go into a job pack, to be honest with you. I think it's quite I don't think many people use that. I think it's quite useful. Especially if you can print it out when you've got paper form. Or you can email it to a customer. So the file tab, really straightforward. The configure tab, well, this is now where you've took your download of both panels. We've gone to site because you're going to go there to make some amendments. Whether you're going to add some more smoke detectors, whether you're going to add another panel to the network, whatever it may be, it's the configure tab you'll be using to do this. So let's say you're going to this site where we're going out, we've got an office and a warehouse, got a panel in each. Let's say you want to, they've extended, they've got a dispatch building now, they've built a dispatch building or something like that, and they want a panel in there. So you're going to go to site to add a new panel. Well, every time you click on one of these, click on this is the config tree, you'll see these two windows change, because this is what you can add to the network site, and that's i.e. more panels. If I select the panel itself, any one of the panels, that's what you can add to any one of the panels you've got selected, i.e. these boards we talked about before, a view repeater, those relay boards. But plus it out and drop onto a loop, the windows change again, and this is what you can add to the loops. In this case, that's a Chica. If I go to panel 2, drop onto loop, that's an Apollo panel, so you get all your Apollo devices. And you can filter these out as well. So you're going to go site. They built another building called dispatch, for example. So you need to add another panel 3, let's say, because I've got panels 1 and panel 2. So you get your panel out of the box, you put it on the wall. You've got your network card, you've addressed it's address 3 with the binary DIL switches. That's fine. You've powered the panel up, you've got the batteries in, the panel's now powered up as address 3. It's going to go unexpected network card. So you're going to open the right enable switch and you're going to learn the panel. Level 3, and then learn the panel. So you've learned the panel. Your network cabling that goes round panel 1 and 2, you've extended the network cabling. So maybe now goes out of panel 1 into panel 2, out of panel 2 into panel 3, your new panel 3, and then out of panel 3 back to panel 2 and close the loop back up. So you've extended the network cabling. The panel's powered up as panel 3. So now the other two panels are going to be in fault now because doesn't know about panel 3. So it's going to say no, unexpected network node. Panel 3 will be in fault because that doesn't know about panels 1 and 2, your new panel. So what you need to do, you can connect to the panel 3, and download that into this config file. Or you can simply double click. So what are you adding? Let's say you add another cheeky panel. So if I double click on this, I've had another cheeky panel. It's just a 1 loop panel. Depends if you've got another loop board in there. If you have got another loop board in there, if I double click on the panel itself, this is where you change it to a 2 loop panel. Okay. If I say OK, it's now a 2 loop panel. So I'm going to double click on this panel again and give it a name. So we said it was going to be the dispatch panel. Dispatch. and call it P3. Like I'm always doing a save. So okay, you've physically got the thing on the wall. You've physically got the cables around all your three panels. All your three panels are in fault because they don't know about each other, or the new panel. Address 1 and 2 original, 3 is the new one, and we've now added a third panel to this latest config file. So what you would do now, guys, is basically upload this config file now to panel 1. So you open the right enable switch, connect to the panel with your Kentech lead, and upload this config file, what contains all three panels, back to panel 1. Walk over to panel 2 and do exactly the same there. Then walk over to panel 3 and do exactly the same there. Upload all panels this config file. Let the panels come back, turn back the right enable switch, do a reset, and now you've just added a panel to the network. It's as simple as that. The main thing you have to do, guys, is upload the config file with all the panels back to the to all the panels, basically. And then same if you want to add another panel and so on, you know. So yeah, adding network panels, very straightforward. So minutes, guys. So if I drop down a panel, down onto the office panel 1, you can see the windows change again. Because these are the things you can add to a panel. In this case, it's panel 1, depends which panel you add in to. So let's say the office panel, or let's say the warehouse. Maybe we want some extra relays down at the bottom of the warehouse. Okay, maybe near the dispatch building. We've got some relays inside the panel, but we want 3 or 4 more relays down at the bottom end of the warehouse. So what you do, you get your download. I keep saying that, and I will keep saying that. We've got his latest config file. We've got it all here. Everything's here now. It's all done. It's all here. We made a copied version as well, so this isn't even the original, which is good. All you need to do, let's say you want to add a relay board. You need to run your cable. So from the warehouse panel, run a 4-core all the way down to the end of the warehouse. You've got your relay board in your hand. With the DIL switch, you address it as address 1. You put it in a nice enclosure, and now you need to gland your 4-core into that enclosure, connect to 24 volts, and connect that data. In the panel, you've connected 24 volts, and you've connected the data from that data bus. So now you've done that connection, the panel's going to say unexpected relay board. So you're going to have to open up the right enable switch on this panel, go to level 3, and you're going to have to learn the panel. You're going to have to learn this relay board on. It's going to wipe the panel completely clean, but it's going to add this new device on, this new hardware. But it don't matter, because all you will do now, you do warehouse panel, you just double click on the relay board. As you can see, we've added it on. Double click on the relay board, give it a name if you wish. So I'll just maybe call it warehouse relays. It's an address 1, like I said, so maximum of 32. So it's address 1 and save. Then these relays themselves, you can tick them to be part of the default ring mode. If it's default ring mode, guys, all outputs and sounders by default, when you learn a panel for the first time, all sounders and outputs are generally in default ring mode. So what that means is any fire anywhere on the network, on any panel, the sounders and relays will operate. So maybe that's like, I don't know, BMS. So you can do some labeling now. I want that to be part of default ring mode. Maybe call that a spray booth or something. Just making stuff up here. And that's it, really. And you can carry on. You've got 8 relays. And these 2 are going to go by default ring mode. As you can see there, default ring mode, these 2 are going to go. So any fire condition, anywhere in the office, the warehouse, or if they've got any device to dispatch, will operate this relay because it's in default ring mode. So once I've made some adjustments to this relay, I've auto-learned the panel. So the panel's clean, wiped clean, and the board's been added. All I need to do now is connect to panel 2 with a contact lead and upload this configuration back to the panel. So it'll take everything it had before, plus any additions I've physically fitted out on site as well. Okay, and some alterations to those additions as well. So like I say, you must auto-learn the panel. To drop onto a panel, and that goes by adding any of these devices, by the way, like a view repeater. I'll just add one of those to an office, let's say, to the office panel. So again, I'm going to repeat myself. This is the latest download now. Your site. You need to add now view repeater, maybe to an office reception. So if I just double click on the view repeater, well, first of all, what you would do, you've got your latest download, which I've got now. You'd go and install this view repeater, get it out of the box, pick up 24. So you could run a 4-core from the office panel, Syncro AS panel in the office, run a 4-core, out to view repeater, now it's on the wall, 24 volts, plus that RS-45 data bus, and then you've addressed this as address 1 with the DIL switches inside that view repeater. So you physically added the thing to the Syncro AS panel. So again, the panel's going to say unexpected view repeater because it doesn't know about it. Open the right enable switch and learn the panel. Again, you're going to wipe the panel, but you're going to learn this view repeater onto the panel. Once you've done that, the panel sat happy. Just double click, go back to LE2 and add the view repeater. Double click on that, give it a name if you wish. So maybe we'll call it reception. And it is address 1. Like I said, up to a maximum of 15 of these. So way up, it's only the first one we've added, so it's address 1. So I've got view repeater, press save. So now all I need to do now is upload this configuration file, go to tools, transfer config, plug in, connect to panel 1 and send that to the panel. Transfer to panel. With the right enable switch open, obviously, because we're uploading now. And I let the panel come alive, let it reinitialize, turn back the right enable switch when it's all done, and then just simply reset the panel. And then you've got a fault-free panel, but you've added a view repeater. You see, I'm repeating myself a bit here because all I'm saying is you have to auto-learn every time, but because it wipes the panel, you've got to make sure you got that download. Drop onto a loop, then you've got all your devices. These wizards change, actually. I mean, if I go onto there, you get a wizard there. Those wizards are quite handy if you're adding a lot of devices in one go, because it allows you to do the same text in one go, same zones. But I don't really use that when I'm adding panels because you're only adding one panel at a time, maybe. These wizards are only useful when you're adding quite a lot of devices or quite a lot of things in one location. Like if I go to the office and I want to use the wizard, I can just simply double click down here and they'll add. And it'll go into the next available address as well. So I think I've got a gap. I've got 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. I've got a gap of 6. So if I just double click on a device, maybe a multi, whatever it may be, if I double click on that, it's going to drop in to the next available device. If I can double click on that, I can change the device number if I wish. Maybe you don't want it. You want to be another device number. It's up to you. So you're going to go site now. Again, you've got the latest download. We're not adding a null panel. You're not adding a view repeater. You're going to add some smokes and call points and sounders. You're going to be installing some new devices. So again, you've got your latest download. That's done. So all you need to do is go and physically fit the things now. So let's say you've got a link corridor between the office and the warehouse or something, and it's been built, and now you're running your cables. So you break into loop 1 of the office panel, add your devices, number all your devices up, address them all up, all your call points, your smokes, and close the loop back up again. Return back and close that loop back up on the on loop 1. So you've added these devices. Every time you add these devices, the panel's going to be unexpected smoke detector, unexpected call point, unexpected sounder, because it doesn't know about it, because you're physically adding these on. Again, what you're going to have to do is open the right enable switch, go to level 3 once you finish your installation, and then learn the panel. So it learns all these new devices you just added. Go back to your LE2. You can use the wizard at this stage. We've added some multi, so select the multi, the node 1, loop 1. Next available address is 11, as it turns out now. On beauty on it, I can set them all in maybe zone 5. And how many? Maybe we want to add 6. We'll call it office link corridor. This saves you having to add them all individually and then having to write all the text in the same for the same location, because it'll do it all in one go for you now. So if we add those, next available address is 17 now. We want a couple of break glass units. Same address, same zone, so we'll just add 2 of those. See how easy this wizard is now? In this scenario, it is. Maybe a couple of sounders as well, and add those. So if I close that down now, I open my loop, you can see now that we've added all these link corridors. We've added them all. Remember that multi I added? First of all, I just double clicked and it dropped in there. Well, I can double click on that multi and I can add it in there on the sensor properties and give it a zone individually, but that could take you a while if you've got a lot to do. Or you can go to quick config, and if you've got any gaps, you can copy and paste. So I just can right click, copy. Quick config is really good. And zone 5. If you've got a lot to do, you use quick config basically when you've got a lot of devices to text up, because you can do it per panel. So if I go to panel 2, I might have some gaps. If I add, I can just fill the gaps in, but you can just type all the text, all the zones, all in one place for that loop, for that panel. Okay. So you can either go individually into each device, pull out, double click, you put the text in there, the zone in there. If you've got a lot to do, guys, just go to quick config. You'll see all this blank. Just copy and paste, get your type, just get typing and get all your zoning in, and you can do it all in one go because these are all your devices. And you can do it per panel, per loop. If you've got another loop there, you'd have another loop, and so on. I've got no devices on panel 3, but they would be there, and I could do all my texting. I mean labeling. Okay. It's a lot better than going into it individually. Multi-sensor. Type it in, zone it. It's a lot quicker. So okay then, so as you can see now, the office link corridor, we've got some call points, we've got some smokes. We've physically added the things in this link corridor. The panel said unexpected devices. We've now gone to level 3, open the right enable switch, and we've gone to learn the panel. So the panel is completely wiped clean, but it's learned all these new devices on. So we've now added those new devices in exactly the same number, what we've fitted physically out on site with regards to its addresses. So that'll be a simple case of uploading this configuration file back to panel 1. So again, repeating myself, it take everything I had before with regards to its config, plus all the new additions with regards that you've texted it and zoned it now. Okay. So like I say, we've got the globe, that's adding panels. The panel itself, that's adding hardware to the panels. And you can drop on, you've got the loops, that's adding devices to the loops. If you go further down on each panel, you'll see this next one, panel input outputs, panel IOs. Every panel has got this. Seems a while back now, guys, but when we were going through that PowerPoint earlier, and I'm going through all those connections on the main panel, on the main motherboard of the panel, you've got the sounder circuits, you've got the relays. You asked that question about alarm relay and the fire relay. All those relays and sounders and things and inputs is all here. Every panel you had, even this brand new panel we've just added. There's no devices, but you always get the set of panel IOs. Okay. Now, if it's blue, they're inputs. If it's green with an arrow going out, it's outputs. So, for example, I did say you got those 5 programmable inputs where you simply get 0 volts. I used to take a 0 volts, hook a piece of cable inside the panel, a 0 volts out to a normally open key switch, I mount on the side of the panel, normally open, I bring it back, and I went into the fault input, because you very rarely use a fault input. If I double click on the fault input, I can make that a disablement input, like I did. I'll just give it a label. I did a disable roller shutter doors, and add it as non-latching, because the key switch was latching. So now that's ready. So all I need to do now is physically go and fit this key switch from the 0 volts to the key switch back to the input. And when I turn that input, that'll become a disablement input now. Then all I need to do is cause and effect, go to disable cause and effect, and it'll come up in a bit in the video I got later. You select that device, that input. So that's the cause. The next will be an output, the effect. What's my output? So I'll find a relay, whatever. So maybe I might just select all my relays. Alt relays. Yeah, and sounders. Or there's no, I don't want sounders, just want relays. You've got to be a bit careful with this, guys. You've got to. In fact, if I show you something here, I've put all my relays in a dump zone. Put a zone manager. You see all my relays are there for the warehouse. Quite useful. All my relays for the office. What I'm saying, guys, is sometimes it's a zone manager. This shows you what's in each zone. Well, I tend to put all my relays. You can commission exactly how you want to commission, but I tend to put all my relays into a dump zone. I can select them individually in cause and effects, or I can select zone 20, disable zone 20, and I know for a fact that all my relays in the warehouse will be disabled because I put them all in zone 20. I always used to that when I did my cause and effects and my configs. So when I go to cause and effects now and use that key switch, I need to select the key switch I've just set up. We know it's that one, so I've labeled it. Make sure you label all as much as you can, because when it comes to cause and effect, guys, it's easy to understand. In fact, if I cancel that, I'm going to rename that. Double click, disable all relays. Got to put into a zone, it's not that important, but it's a disablement input now. Goes out to 0 volts, goes out to a key switch outside of the panel, comes back into input 1, and it's disable all relays. I'll just give it a label. Fault input. As long as I wire that as I've programmed it, we should be good. Go to cause and effect, go to disable, find that input. So it's a panel input, so one of the inputs on the panel. Disable all relays. It's a single operation, so it's just single, it's just one turn of a key switch. That's the cause. What's the effect? Well, this is what I was saying now, guys. I can individually pick all my relays, go to my outputs, But I've got to really have a look at this, really think that I'm getting them. Or I can simply go to zone, because I know zone 10 and 20 are all my relays. I'll just pick my relays up straight away because they're in that dump zone. Go next. And just label what you want to call it. There's a video coming up on this anyway, very similar to what I've just done. Just to confirm this. And finish. So now, this will start to populate the cause and effect tab. The cause, if I turn that key switch now onto that fault input, it's not fault input anymore. So I've changed its job basically. That becomes live. And what's it been told to do? It's been told to disable anything in zone 10 and 20. And I know anything in zone 10 and 20 are my relays. In both office and the warehouse. So can you see where these panel input outputs are really useful? Especially, I do really like these inputs because you don't always use them. If I double click on each one, so that fault input, it was a fault. We've changed it to a disablement. Reset. It is a reset. So you can reset it, but you can change it to be a fire. If you want, turn a key switch in the next minute, you've got a fire condition. Intermittent. So these are all default actions. Okay. Silence the alarms. And then, like I say, you've got evacuate, that evacuate button. Because that evacuate button, all your sounders by default, like I say, are in default ring mode and evacuate. If I open a sounder up, so let's open any loop sounder. So drop onto a loop. If it's in red, it's got an output attached to it. In this case, it's got a sounder. It's a base sounder. If I double click on that, by default, it's got fire default ring mode ticked. Like it says there, you need to uncheck that if you want this sounder to operate by cause and effects, not by default. So if you want this sounder to operate in a different way than on any device, okay, create that line of cause and effect to operate this sounder, but you have to then untick that if that is the case. But I'll get explained a little bit later as well. But like I said, they've always got the evac output ticked. If I pick another one, double click, evac output. So if you've got an evac input, and any output you've got, output is a relay or a sounder, any output that's got evac output ticked, it just maps through. It'll know, okay, a vac input is operated. I'm being ticked to say on evac, I'm going to then evac. So if you'll go back, so we know my sounders have got evac ticked. So if I go to panel IOs, we said that's an evacuate, double click on that, and it has got evac ticked. So that's the input, that's the cause. Any output, which is the effect, has got evac ticked, will evacuate. I'll press that button, which is on the front of the Syncro panel. The function button below, I did say it's got no job at all. You can decide what you want that button to be. You can make it a test mode if you want. And then you create a line of cause and effect, select that button, and you can put zones into test mode by pressing that button. But to start with, it's transparent. It could be a fire signal. You could have another evacuate, or you could have an alert, a bomb alert. If you've got sounders ticked as alert, so yeah, that's a good idea. You could actually call this a bomb alert, actually. Have that as latching, because then once you've pressed it, you have to reset the panel. So we'll have that as latching. It's now an alert, so bomb alert. Any sounders now that's got ticked alert will operate in alert mode. So let's go back to a couple of these sounders. Double click on that. It's got alert ticked. That's fine. That's going to operate. Another sounder here is there. Alert. Okay, if you untick it, the other ones come available. By default, these are your 3 that are ticked on your sounders. And it's soundsable as well as a sounder. So even these 2 down here, just added those, alerts tick. So what I'm saying is now this function button is now a bomb alert, as you can see there. So you press that function button now on panel 1 and you'll have an alert signal. It's just mapped through, there's no cause and effect. So they're all your inputs, very useful inputs to use. And just change regarding your sign. Your sounder circuits, like I say, you've got 2 onboard sounder circuits. Double click on that. And again, default ring mode. These are your conventional sounder circuits with the end of line unit. They are silenceable, classed as silenceable because the sounders you've got to be able to silence the sounders at the panel. If not, you'd have to reset the panel before you can shut the sounders off. But again, default ring mode, they will operate every time. Same with sound circuit 2. Classified as a sounder because it's silenceable. And you want it to be silenceable as well. Remember I talked about those 3 relays? Fire contact. It'll operate in any fire condition. I said that. Any fire condition on the network, it will switch, send a signal, but all it clears down and reset. It's not silenceable. But if you want it silenceable, you can, if you wish. That alarm contact, I said it was slightly different. Works in exactly the same way, default ring mode and evac. So this relay will switch over. If somebody presses that evac button on front of the panel, this relay will also switch because it's got evac ticked. But it is silenceable. Maybe you don't want it silenceable. You want it like the fire contact, just to be able to clear down and reset. So all these are just tick boxes, you can see. And the fault contact is a fault contact. And it's silenceable. So if you get a fault on the panel, you press silence, it will clear it down. Maybe you don't want that. You want to do a reset. Maybe you don't want a fault contact or another fire contact. You know, you can have one of each. You can't have more than one. That's your ticket, but you can't. So you can see that all those where I'm going through there is all those connections actually in the panel itself, on the main motherboard itself. Okay, that's what these panel inputs and outputs are. They're in the panel. You get them with the panel all the time. You can tweak these depending on your particular. Once you've tweaked these, once you've labeled them, you've changed their properties, you can then upload this config file. I'd upload it back to all 3 panels at this point if I made some changes like that. Okay. Like I said, quick config is really useful for typing out loads of labels and text. Zone manager, the entire network, or you can do it per panel, is what you've allocated to each zone. I always tend to just have the entire network. Basically, it's what's in each zone. Sensitivity manager. If ever seen anything with manager, by the way, guys, I'm about to say anything that says manager is kind of a quick way of doing things. You can do, like with any software, you can do things individually. It can take you a long while, or you can use a tab that allow you to do quite a lot of things in one go. And it's every time you see manager here, it kind of gives you an overview. Like for example, in this warehouse, let's say there are some issues in this warehouse. Let me have a look. Tell you what, I'll go for the multis. We've got some multi. That's it. We've got some multi in that link corridor. Maybe they've got some fault lifts going through the link corridor. With these multis, we've just installed these multis and they're having some false alarms. So maybe you want to say, okay, then we'll have them as a heat detector during the day and back to a multi during the night once the building's closed. Well, you can do them individually. You can go into each one individually and change the settings. So let's start with this one. Well, you could have 50 or 60 of these to do. So that's going to take you quite a while. That's why I'm going to suggest you use this. But I'll show you if you want individually. So if you double click on the multi and go to sensor properties, what you'll get is the day and night levels. Well, it's 4 and 4, multi and multi. So there's no change. It's a multi all day and all night. But maybe you want it to be heat during the day. And what temperature, you know? So once you've set that, you also can indicate pre-alarm. You can turn that off if you wish. If it's an hotel bedroom, for, let's say, you don't want the flashing pulling LED, you can turn that off. But I'm going to leave all that. I'm just interested in this. And press save. So I've done that. I'll go to my next multi in this link corridor. Do that. But like I say, you could have 50 of these to do. It can take you a little bit of while. Or within seconds, I can use Sensitivity Manager. Select your multis. So down here is what you've got on your site. So if I select multis, 5+ panel 1 out, I can see all my multis there. What else have I got? If I'm just doing heat sensors, we see all my heat sensors there. But I'm only interested in those multis. I can select all. I don't want that one. So select what you need. See how quickly I did that. Office link corridor. I don't want that one. Just make sure you've got office link corridor. So I've got all my office link corridor sensors now. Now I can change them all in one big hit. Heat. I'll leave it at 60, quite happy with that. And I'm going to leave these as well. You can change these all out if you wish in one go. So I'm happy with that now. And I'm happy with what I've got selected there. The bottom right, I need to set that sensitivity. And that'll be an OK. So if I go to have a look at a couple of these then, just select a few in random, number 15, double click. That's changed. Number 16. That's changed. That's good. Okay, so we've told these sensors now during the day to be heat in this link corridor and during the night to go back to being a multi. But what does the panel think the day is? So once you've set your sensors up to whatever you want to change their properties, their modes, once you've done that, and you've got to check on them like I've just checked that they've all been changed, you need to go to the panel itself, double click on the panel itself, the ones they're connected to, and go to times. And this is basically what the panels is the day set up by default. So you can leave it as this if you wish. But what I'm going to do, we don't work Sundays, so I'm just going to write that off. I'm going to match that up and don't work Saturdays. But 7 o'clock is the day start. I'm happy with that. It's 6 o'clock, the day finish. So what we're saying, it's 7 o'clock in the morning. That is the day as far as the panel's concerned. So any sensors that is turned to a heat detector now during the day will turn to a heat detector until 6 o'clock. When it gets to 6 p.m., it's now entering night as far as the panel's concerned. So now those multis will go back to being a multi, not a heat detector, until 7 in the morning, and so on. While I'm in this box as well, you can set all your sensors to get calibrated at 7 o'clock in the morning. If you've got quite a lot of panels on your site, it might be worth offsetting that. So maybe have this one at 6, another panel at 7, another panel at 8, another panel at 5, 4 in the morning. It's just that it just recalibrates all your sensors, what's deemed to be a quiet time on your premises, but you can change that if you wish. And like I say, it's a good idea to offset those as well, so you haven't got loads of all your sensors calibrated at the same time around all your panels and all your network. So that's a little tip there. Just if you have got more than one panel, just offset the calibration time so they get calibrated at different times. That's all. I'm only showing that while we're in here. But I'm happy with my day now. My day starts at 7 and ends at 6. So one of these all these sensors now will be heat during the day, but after 6 o'clock, it'll go back to being a multi, the 9. Once you're happy with that, upload this back to panel 1, and you've just basically done some day and night settings. Really straightforward, as you can see. And you can alter sensors on alter modes on all devices. If I went on if I go heat detector, let's have a look what it says about heat detector. So I can change the temperature of a heat detector. So I can lower the temperature for the day or higher the temperature. So maybe we'll go that to 88. And then during the night after 6 o'clock, this now will go back to being a normal 60 degrees temperature. If you go to your panel 2, we've got that's Apollo. Go to discoveries. You got your modes. It tells you what modes they are. Like maybe during the day, if I set that to mode 5, no response to smoke. It's the least sensitive. So during the day now, no response to smoke. But after 6 o'clock, whatever you set it to, it'll go really sensitive. Okay, so you do get some guidelines as to what you're changing these to, okay, before you commit. Once you've changed the modes on the sensors, like I said, the most important thing is go into the panel and tell it what the day is. Okay. The Loop Manager tab. This is basically a tab I've already really used when I want to look what's going off on a download. I can just select the first device. I then use my keyboard and scroll down on the right hand side. You can see that pulling LEDs on. I can take it off there if I wish. Quite just a quick way again of seeing the whole site. It's called Manager again, Loop Manager, so you can like get to see all the site. Everything's in default ring mode. All my sounders should work. Maybe somebody's complained a sounder didn't work, so you're looking for a sounder what's not got default ring mode ticked. So this is a quick way, just using your keyboard and scrolling down and keep an eye on the right hand side, looking for one that's unticked maybe, or whatever it is you're looking for. Maybe a customer's complained that the LED's pulling in their hotel bedroom. I mean, for you to then go down the network and have a look at every single device, double clicking to look for that one detector that's got the pulling LED ticked, take you a while. If you go to Loop Manager, just highlight the first device and scroll down with your keyboard, you can look on the right hand side and look for it. And if it's ticked, just untick it and then upload that back to the panel. So that's what Loop Manager is really. It just scrolls down, gives you an overview, drops onto panel 2 now, and so on. So you can get down all your site really. If I just use my keyboard as I'm scrolling down. Okay. That's the only thing I really use Loop Manager for. So we'll go to the cause and effect tab a little bit later. There's a video I'm going to show you these 3 operators. The action tab is basically cause. What do you want something to operate? Something like a call point, smoke detector, a zone to operate another zone, another sounder, an output. A cause is an input. An effect is an output. Disabled, you create a disable input. I did that already. You saw me do that earlier. And then you can use that cause effect wizard to disable a zone, which might have all your relays in. Then a test mode. You create test mode input first. Select any input, whether it's a loop input or panel input. When the input comes live, that's your cause. Set the test mode. That wizard would guide you through, and then you could put so many zones into test mode by just a click of a switch. Rather than going through all the front end of the Syncro panel, put all your device into test mode. You can do it by just click of a switch. But again, these will get explained to you in a little bit when we get to this point. So like I said, I've gone through all these tabs up the top here, as you can see. The configure tab. Then we've gone down the globe, the panel, adding loops, all the panel input outputs, what's inside the panel itself. But what about the panel itself? How do you want the panel to actually work for you on your side? So if I double click on a panel, any panel, you get some panel data. So we can change access codes if you want a particular access code. You know by default it's all the 3s or all the 2s, depending on what level, but you can change those. You've got LEDs as well. You've got 16 LEDs on front of the panel. Do you want it to flash? What's your first LED going to be? If it's part of a network. If you've got a graphics system, make sure you got that ticked. If you have got one of those guide graphics connected to the panel, or the ocular graphics, that'll get explained in the graphics course. A couple of things I'll come back to these in a bit about delays. I've always had these two ticked. It's entirely up to you guys. But my sites, I've always had these two ticked. I think by default, just this one's ticked. If I open this brand new panel we just added, double click on that. Yeah, you see, that's your default tick. But for me, it's entirely up to you. I always have these two ticks. It's basically resound firing same zone. Well, what that is, say you get a fire in zone 5, and the alarms have all evacuated, the alarms have gone off, the alarms have activated, someone's gone and silenced the alarms and then forgot about the panel, and the smoke has then spread and gone into another device on zone 5. Well, the sounders will then activate once again. Again, it's entirely up to you. Suppose it depends how critical your site is. Same with this one. Again, activation, let's say on zone 5, someone's going to silence the sounders, acknowledge the sounders, forgot about the panel, the smoke has continued and drift into, let's say, zone 6. The sounders will then activate once again. That's just me. I just always had them two ticked. Remember I talked about loops offset, just a tick box? Well, because this is the first panel, it won't allow you to offset the loops. It's the first panel. So it can't really offset the first panel. Because at the moment we've got panel 1, loops 1. So what I'll do, I'll make these 2 loop panels just to make it show a little bit easier. So 2 loop panel this now. And so is this one. So we've got panel 1, loops 1 and 2. Panel 2, loops 1 and 2. And panel 3, loops 1 and 2. But I want to offset these loops like we showed earlier. So if I go to double click on panel 2, we'll offset that. And panel 3, we'll offset that. So now we've got loops 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, and 6. Upload this back to the panels now, and then you just offset your loops. Again, it's entirely up to you if that's how you want to commission your systems, that's how you want it to work. But I do think it's quite useful when it comes to labeling. So double click back onto there. So that's your loop offsets. The fire output, So everything's in default ring mode at the moment, as you can see. If I look at one of my sounders, any sounders, they're all in default ring mode. So if I plus this out, it's in default ring mode, that's fine. These two sounders are in default ring mode. So these sounds are going to operate by any device, anywhere on my network, any panel, these sounders. Even if I go into my onboard sounders inside the panel, double click, they're in default ring mode. So it's a one out, all out, as we call it. A one out, all out. But you can actually have a little bit of cause and effect just by a tick box. So panel 1, for example, somebody hits a break glass on panel 1, all the sounds are going to operate in a common mode, just going to sound. But you can have it as zonal. So let's say you got multi-story building, floors 1 to 10, and zone 5, let's say, floor 5, zone 5, the 5th floor, and all your sounders are in zone 5 on the 5th floor. So you've allocated all your sounders onto the correct zone, on the correct level for the correct floor. So it says zone 5 went into alarm, and you've got it ticked as zonal. Well, zone 5 will operate. All the sounds on that on the 5th floor would operate. And on the 1st, 2nd, 3rd, and 4th, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10 floors will be silent. That's just using that tick box. Did it 2-stage? Well, again, if zone 5 went into alarm, go continuous. So fully vac on zone 5, the 5th floor. All the other floors in the building will all go intermittent into alert mode. Okay, so that is just a really easy way of creating a cause and effect while all your sounds are in default ring mode, one out, all out. An easy way of creating a quick cause and effect without writing a cause and effect line out. If you're doing things by cause and effect, by default, they're just all in common, or one out, all out, basically. What we're saying about delays, let's say in this, maybe in this warehouse, we're having some evacuations in this warehouse, but the main manager wants to acknowledge the panel first and maybe he don't want to tip his warehouse out every time there's a false alarm. So he wants to have a delay on this panel in the warehouse only. So what you can do, if I double click on the warehouse panel, you can create a delay on the sounders, on the outputs. So to do that, first of all, you're going to have to tick delays active on the panel. You must have that ticked, because if you power the panel down or you reboot the panel by pressing the processor reset switch and you haven't got that ticked, all those delays on the sounders you've just lost. So you must have that ticked. You can add the LED. There's an LED that comes up on the panel that you've got a delay on this particular panel. I don't have that ticked. Why have that LED not lit? But the customer may not want it lit. He just wants the power LED. But I wouldn't have that ticked. I wouldn't add the disablement for the delays. So I'd keep that off. I want that LED on the panel. So when you approach the panel, you see that LED and you think, oh, there's some delays on this panel. But the main one you need is this ticked. You can have this ticked. It's a preference, just like that. Basically, if you've got delays on your sounders, which you're about to put on, you have got delays on your sounders of 3 and 5 minutes, let's say. So the manager's got 3 minutes to get to the panel. But say smoke detector's gone off and the sound's about to go after 3 minutes and it doesn't get there in time, and a second smoke detector goes off, it will bypass those delays and the sounds will operate immediately. So you can have that ticked as an extra safety measure, really. So it will bypass any delays you'll create on those sounders, and the sounds will activate immediately if you get more than one device going to fire condition. But again, it's entirely up to you. But that is the main one. So, okay, we've ticked that. So if I go into my sounders now, that's the discovery beacon, double click on that. All I need to do now is set my delays. So maybe 3 minutes, 5 minutes. on that sounder. Unfortunately, guys, you've got to go through all your sounds and set this up. Okay. What else have we got? What the only sound I've got? Oh no, there's one here, look. So yeah, you've got to select all your sounds that want to be part of this delay. Okay. I think that's it. Oh, I've got sound control unit there. So all my loop sounders are set, and I need to go on my panel sounders on this panel, the sounder circuits. Once you've uploaded this back to the panel, so now the manager's got 3 minutes to get to the panel. He needs to press the silence acknowledge button within that 3 minutes. If he doesn't get there, the sounders will operate. If he does get there within 3 minutes and presses the silence acknowledge, he's then got further 5 minutes to investigate where the potential fire could be. And if it's a false alarm, you can then come back and just simply reset the panel without obviously evacuating all his warehouse, because the sounders are now delayed. And the panel knows there's a delay because we've told it. Okay. And we've got an extra safety feature in there as well. So once you've uploaded this to the panel, you then create some delays on the sounders. I will say one more thing though about this is first thing you're going to do once you've uploaded this to the panel is testing. And you're going to operate a call point because it's the nearest thing to you. And the sounds will operate straight away. And you'll think, well, where's my delays? Because if you double click on a call point, by default, because they're manual action, they all tick to bypass delays. So if you want your call points to be part of that delay, you're going to have to untick those as well. So you have to go through all your call points. How many have I got on this one? Just the 2? Oh, 3. Done that one. So yeah, you've got to find all your call points and go through them all. If you go onto a sensor, they are unticked by default. So you're okay with your sensors, it's just your call points. Okay. Or maybe you've got a sensor what's in a critical area, maybe in a plant room or something. So this sensor is in a plant room. You could think, if that sensor goes off, I want the sounds to go straight away. Like a heat detector, for example. A heat detector in a kitchen, you don't get many false alarms with those. You may want to tick that. If a heat detector goes off in a kitchen, there's a good chance you want the sounders to go straight away. You don't want to mess about with delays. So you can see how you can tweak the sensors to be part of that delay or not to be part of that delay, depending on where that sensor is on your side. And once you've done that, upload this back to the panel, and then you can test your call points, and then you will have your delays. Okay, so that's the main things really on the panel data. Went through the times. Your network interface. Well, this is basically what you can have. I've got panel 1 selected. Basically, what will panel 1 want to see with regard to the 2 panels on the network? So you can filter out what goes around the network. So you don't have to have all the information going around to all the panels on the network. Maybe on panel 1, you don't want it to see faults from panels 2 and panel 3. So you can just untick. It'll not see the faults now. But you can then filter that out even more. Maybe you just want it to, maybe you want it to log the faults. So now panel 1 will only log the faults in its log. But it won't process it, it won't display it, it won't print it out if it's got a printer, and it won't have that annoying buzz if there's a fault on panels 2 or panel 3. And then you do that for every panel. Double click on panel 2. Now panel 2 will be at the top. Panel 2's there, and all the other panels are down here now. So again, we'll do exactly the same. We'll just have them logging. That's all we need. We need some logs, and that's it. Same with panel 3. So you have to go through all your panels and sort out your network interfacing. What do you want each panel? Panel 3 is at the top now, and panel 1 and panel 2 are down here. So again, we'll do exactly the same. So what it's going to do now, all the panels on site now will all display their own faults, but they will log faults from every other panel. But the only fault that will show up on those panels, 3 panels now, are the local faults, not the faults over the network. So you just upload these to back to the 3 panels, and then you kind of like filtered out the information that's going around the network. We used to have a scenario in hospitals, for example, whereas all this would be ticked. If panel 1 is in the like an estates department, you'd have all that ticked because the panel in the estates department wants to see everything. But out on site in the hospital, most of this is unticked. They're almost standalone panels. Does panel 2 really want to see what panel 1's doing? They could be half a mile away from each other, you know? So we used to have an hospital where quite a lot was unticked, apart from the main panels in certain areas that saw everything got off on the network. So you kept the buzzing, you kept the fault down to a minimum around the site, because obviously when you've got hospitals with theatres and things and maternity, do you want it buzzing all day because there's a fault over an accident emergency or something? Do you want the maternity panel to buzz? So maybe you don't. So you can untick to almost make the panels standalone panels. So all the faults and fires are just local. It doesn't see what's going off around the networks. It says, I'm going to ignore you because I've been told to ignore you. But you'll have some main panels around the site that sees everything. So again, not go too much into this because that's so site specific. It all starts, every panel on your network all see everything to start with. As you see, everything was ticked. You could see that everything is ticked to start with. Then you can filter out what panel does not want to see what or doesn't want to see on that particular network. Then you got loop sound options. You can turn all your loop sounders down in one hit rather than individually going each loop sounder and turning them down or turning them up, depending on what you want to do. And then you can change some tones on your loop sounders as well. Okay. So I'll not go into that too much. That's pretty straightforward. So you can change any input that comes in. These are your inputs. And you've got any outputs set up for a fault, whatever it may be, sounder, you can change the tone of that sounder. Okay, what I'm going to do, I'm now going to open up the original one I opened up because I butchered that a little bit. And let's say we made some change. This is my original download. I downloaded originally, as you remember, just after lunch. And let's say we made some changes, made some text changes to some of the devices. I changed some modes. I did a day and night setting. I've just tweaked and did a few little changes. Now I want to upload this back to the panel. Okay, so what I would do is, first of all, we took the download. That was easy. We did that. I have to make sure I'm connected. So what I'm going to do, I'm going to upload to panel 1 first. So if I connect panel 1, edit preferences, let's do a refresh. Right, okay, COM20. Connect to panel. Let it find panel 1, let it get past panel 1, then I can close this down. Okay. And it's found panel 1. Set to panel. You can set time from here as well, guys. You don't have to set the time from the front end of the panel. You can set the time from your PC. So if I say select time, it's now set the time on that panel behind me off my PC. If you do that though, you've got to connect to the panel again. It does drop you out, as you can see. So I'm going to have to connect again. But I think that's a quick way. Just set the time first. Okay. So panel 1, but this time, guys, to get a screwdriver, if I'm doing an upload, I have got to open that right enable switch. So I'll do now. Done that. To panel and transfer to panel. That is panel 1, isn't it? We'll just check I'm on the right one. Yeah. So that should go in. So now I'm uploading from the PC any changes I've made, any additions I've done back to the panel. Maybe after an auto learn or whatever it is you may have done. But I've opened that right enable switch. Once that's done, I can plug into panel 2 and I'll just upload it to panel 2. And then once they all come back alive, so I'll just go yes. So now panel 1 is reinitializing now. So if I can connect to panel 2, edit preferences, do another refresh, you'll pick another COM port, transfer configuration, connect to panel. Select the panel. I'm going to set time again. I always do that first. Okay. It means I've got to connect to panel again. To panel and transfer to panel. Oh, I'll tell you what, it's going to bomb me out. I've not opened the right enable switch. Not a bad thing because it's going to tell me that. Right enable switch is off. Set right enable switch and retry. So the panel's telling me that. There you go, look. Told you. So open the right enable switch. See, that's good because it protects you, see. Transfer to panel. There you go. Now it should go in now. So not a bad looking mistake to make that, because it just shows you if you don't open that right enable switch, you can't do the upload, which is good because if you're taking downloads, you don't want to upload into the panels. You could put blank config in there. There you go. So these two panels now are reinitializing. They'll do its thing. They'll all come back. I'll have to turn the right enable switch back, do a reset on the panel. Then any change I've made, just have to go there and do the relevant commissioning and testing now. If you was on site for real. Okay then guys, what I'll do, we've got a video coming up now showing those 3 operators of the cause and effects. So it kind of like talks you through how to set up the cause and effects for all those 3 operators. I don't know if you want to grab yourself literally 5 minutes, get yourself a quick drink, just so you've got a drink for when I saw this video out. So literally come back in the next 5 minutes if that's okay. Just go and grab yourself a water, a soft drink, or whatever it may be.
Just going to make a quick cuppa, Lee.
Yes, sound. Okay, brilliant. Right then, guys. So, like I say, we'll just continue on with this LE2 software to a finish now, guys. I know it's a lot to take in, but I'm hoping I'm just kind of like giving you an overview of the LE2 software, and it's something you'll work around yourself once you get into it yourself a little bit more detail. You can see how easy it is to get around it. Everything's just tick boxes. So it's not too taxing, the LE2 software. I think it's quite a decent layout. But this next video coming up now, like I say, it's going to take into account the three cause and effect operators: the action, disable, and the test operator for the cause and effects. If you want to create a test mode, for example, or disablement. And like I said, in that resource pack, these good examples of how to create cause and effects as well, which, like I said, I will be sending over to you after this course. So I'll play this video now. This will take us to a finish, and let's go through the three operators of those cause and effects to give you an idea how to set a cause and effect up, for example. Hi, in this video, we're going to take a look at some cause and effect examples with regards using a Syncro AS panel. So for example, we've got a warehouse and an office building, which are next door to each other. So for example, if there was a fire in the warehouse, you'd want the sound to go continuous, so the staff can now evacuate. With regards to the building next door, a warning signal, an alert signal to alert the staff that there's an issue in the warehouse next door. And the same could be said the other way around. So if there's a fire in the office building, you'd want that sounder to go continuously throughout the building to alert the staff so they can get out safely. But the adjacent building, the warehouse, you'd want to alert the staff in alert mode to warn them that there's an issue in the office building. So this is easily achieved by cause and effect programming in LE2, which I will go through next. Okay, so I've got my configuration open with my two panels, the office panel and the warehouse panel. So first of all, I need to go to the cause and effects tab. And in this case, I'm going to select the action tab to create this sounder cause and effect over the two buildings. So if I double click on action, what loop inputs or zone inputs do I want to activate the office panel, for example, with regard to sounders? So I'm going to go to my zone inputs. I know my zones for the office are in zones 1 and 3. I could do by loop inputs if I wish, individual loop inputs, or I can just simply use the zone inputs. So I'm going to select zones 1 and 3. That's all the zones within my office area. So I'm going to create the sounder cause for the office first. This is going to be a single, just one zone or zone 3, whether it's zone 1 or 3, it's going to be a single operation. It's not going to be all, which would mean zone 1 and 3, or it's not going to coincidence, means two devices within that zone. So it's just going to be a simple single. So either zone will start this cause and effect. So go next. And what zone outputs, again, do I want this to happen? Or to, should I say, do I want this to operate? Again, I can pick my loop outputs with regards my sounders in the office, reception and kitchen. Or I can go straight to my zone outputs because I've got them all in the zones as well, as in zones 1 and 3. Want this to be continuous. Global zones, so it goes over the network, and select next. And simply type in the name for your cause and effect. I'm going to call this cause and effect Office Sounders Continuous and select Finished. Okay, we're going to start seeing our cause and effect tree build up. So the cause is zones 1 and 3, which are my office zones, will continuously operate any devices what's in zones 1 and 3, i.e. my sounders. So now what I need to do, I need to go into my sounders and take out default ring mode of any of my sounders in those zones. So if I open this up a little bit more, as you can see, zones 1 and 3, I've got my sounders in there. So if I open up all my sounders, I must take out default ring mode for this cause and effect to now take place. If I do not do that, any device over the warehouse or the office will operate this sounder. So I must now take out a default ring mode because I want the cause and effect now to operate this sounder. So I'll select all my default ring modes. Okay, so that's my loop sounder there for the office panel. I'm not bothered about my relays. I'm happy for those to go by default. I'm just picking my sounders out. Okay, I've got another sounder there. Double click on there, take that out of default ring mode. And I've got a sounder down here. Again, take that out of default ring mode. I've got no onboard sounders, so I'm just happy to keep all my loop sounders now, which are in zones 1 and 3. They're now out of default ring mode, and the cause and effect will now drive those sounders. Okay, so that's now continuous. Any devices within 1 and 3, zones 1 and 3 will operate any device in zones 1 and 3, which are my sounders in the office, in a continuous mode. Okay, so now what I need to do, the same zones, I want them to operate the warehouse to give them an alert tone. If I double click on action again, select the same zone inputs for the office 1 and 3. Again, I'm just going to go for single, so any zone. Go next. Again, I can select by device all my warehouse sounds if I wish. I can scroll down the full site, or I can simply go to zone outputs because I know what zones my warehouse are in. Zones 4 and zone 6 are my warehouse sounder zones. So what I now need to do is make this time intermittent, as you can see there. So if I go next, and simply name your cause and effect again. Okay, I'm going to call this cause and effect Office 2 Warehouse Alerts. Okay, and select Finished. So, okay, you can see my cause and effect tree is now beginning to build with regards to the Office Sounder Continuous and Warehouse Alert. So anything in zones 1 and 3, as we know, will operate continuous zones 1 and 3, so they're my office sounders. In the same zones 1 and 3, now alert will operate any sounders what's in zones 4 and 6, which are my warehouse sounders. I need to also go to my warehouse sounders and take those out of default ring mode as well. All my loop sounders what are in default ring mode, as you can see. If I open this up, in default ring mode, you can see there. So if I take out the discovery first, and I'll take out the beacon. Okay. move on to the sound and control unit. Got to go through all your sounds on your loops, or any onboard sounders if you've got any onboard sounders as well. So I'll pick these. So we've got default ring mode there. Take them all out. I think that's about it. So I've got the sound and control unit there, the sounder beacon, sound and control unit there. I'm okay with my relays. So I've taken out now all the sounders are now not in default ring mode. So the cause and effect now will take place. Okay, so I now need to do this the other way around. Obviously, if there's a fire in the warehouse, it's got continuous in the warehouse, and we then need to go into alert mode with regards to the office. So, okay, again, go action. Again, I can go by device if I wish. I scroll down and pick the individual device for the warehouse. But I'm going to stick to the fire zone inputs, keep it a little bit cleaner. I know my zones are 4, 5, and 6 with regards to warehouse. Again, any single zone to operate this cause and effect. Go next. And then I'm going to find my zone outputs with regards to sounders. Again, I know that's zones 4 and 6 on my sounders in the warehouse or in zones 4 and 6. Keep it continuous. Select next, and again, name your cause and effect. Okay, I'm going to call this warehouse sounders continuous and finish. We've already taken these out of default ring mode, so this cause and effect will operate okay. But now I need to do the alert side for the office sounders. So again, double click on action. Select the same zone inputs with regards to warehouse, 4, 5, and 6. Single again, the action operator. Go next. And now select the zone outputs with regards the office, which I know are zones 1 and 3. But this time make it intermittent. And again, name your cause and effect. And I've called this warehouse to office alert and finish. Okay, so I've got 4 action cause and effects there. I've got all my sounders that I want to operate out of default ring mode, all my loop sounders. So now they can only be controlled by the line of cause and effects I've now created. Such as the office cause and effects, zones 1 and 3 will continuously operate zones 1 and 3 sounders within the office. The same zones will then operate the warehouse, but intermittent zone, zones 4 and 6 over the warehouse zones. Over the warehouse, we've now got zones 4, 5, and 6. Anything in zones 4, 5, and 6 will now operate continuously any sounders in zones 4 and 6, which are my warehouse sounders, in a continuous manner. The same zones in turn, 4, 5, and 6, will then intermittently into alert mode will operate any sounders in zones 1 and 3, which is over in the office. Okay, so I've now just set up cause and effects between 2 buildings with regards continuous and alert. Okay, so there are 2 more operators available to us with regards cause and effect. We've just done the action cause and effect, where an input activates, operating an output, and we kind of create a line of cause and effect to decide what output that input will then operate, and in what manner, whether it's continuous or alert. And we've got 2 more, like I say, disable and test mode. So maybe you go to this site with regards to the office and the warehouse for commission or service purposes. You may then want to maybe disable some relays, or put the panel into test mode maybe to do some servicing. So first of all, we'll go to the disable operator. I'll double click on this. You will see straight away it will not let me proceed. I've got no items set up as a disablement input.
The idea with this cause and effect wizard is you must always have some inputs available. You need an input, i.e. a cause, before you can move on to then create or operate an output, for example. So I need to cancel this, and we need to create some inputs with regards to disablements first. That'll be the same for the test mode as well. If I click on the test mode, again, it's saying I've got nothing set up with regards to test mode, so we can't continue. We need some input set up as test mode for us to continue. Okay. So we'll set up some inputs on the panel with regard to disable and test mode. So first of all, we'll start with the office panel. You could use loop inputs if you wish. If you've got any loop inputs out there you need to use for turning a key switch, for example, to maybe then operate the loop input as a disablement or test mode. Or you can use the panel input outputs, what's actually built in to the panel themselves. So you've got plenty of inputs here. You've got a function input, which is not being used. It's there for you to decide. And you've got other inputs here as well, which you can also use. So I'm going to use these inputs, what you can wire within the panel. And you can then simply just turn a key switch and then operate one of these inputs with 0 volts onto one of these inputs. And then that cause and effect then will become active, or the input will become active, i.e. the cause and effect will also then become active. So panel 1, the office panel, I'm not using this fault input or the reset input, so I will change the input properties by double clicking on the fault input. I'm going to then make this a disablement input. I'm now going to label this input with regards disabling the relays. Okay, so I've named this Disable Office Relays. I'll put it as non-latching because it's going to be via a key switch. So as soon as I turn the key switch, the input becomes live, i.e. the disablement of the relays will then become active. As soon as I turn the key switch back, the disablements will then simply drop out. Okay, so I've got that input set. The reset input, I'm not using that as well, so I'll make that into a test input for when I'm testing my zones. Again, make it non-latching, so I'll put a key switch on the side of the panel and label this input. Okay, test all office zones and save. So now I've got 2 inputs set up for the office, and to do exactly the same for the warehouse. Again, not using these 2 inputs, I will change these and make these exactly the same. So this is a disablement, I'll have it as non-latching again, I'll fit a key switch on the side of the panel to switch the 0 volts onto this input so it can become active. Again, name the input. Okay, disable warehouse relays and save. The reset input, I'll use this again as I did before for test mode input, again non-latching, and I'm going to label this input again. Okay, test all warehouse zones and save. Okay, so now the inputs are all set up on the office panel and the warehouse panel. I can now use the wizard, the cause and effect wizard, with regards to disable and test mode. I will be able to progress. So double click on disable. Okay, we'll find the input we've been used. We'll do the office disablement first. So we can see there, disable office relays. That's the text message I gave it. Single input, go next. Again, I can find all my office relays by device if I wish and tick all those. But what I did, I put all my relays into zone 10 with regards to the office, so it just makes it look a bit cleaner. So all my relays are in what's called a dump zone, zone 10 in my case. So select zone 10. Okay, I maybe include call points as well. So when you're testing call points, you will also not operate these relays. Again, select next, then name your cause and effect. Okay, disable office relays. Finished. So now my cause and effect tree is definitely growing. Okay, we need to do the same for the warehouse. So double click on disable operator again. Find my panel input I created for the warehouse. The single operator. Next. Again, I put all my relays into zone 20, but again, I can select them individually if I wish. If I just want to disable a particular output. But I know I want all those disabled for when I'm servicing. So I'll just select zone 20. Include the call points and go next. Again, name the cause and effect. Okay, disable warehouse relays and finish. So now you can see the cause and effect tree is beginning to build. So if we go cause, is that input once it becomes live via the key switch. As you can see there, once that input becomes live, the effect will disable anything that's in zone 10. And all my relays for the office are in zone 10. Same with the disable warehouse relays. Once that input becomes live via the key switch, it will disable anything that's in zone 20. And with regards to the warehouse, all my relays are put in that dump zone of zone 20. Okay, so that's the disablement set up. So I'll turn off a key switch. I can then do my servicing, do my testing on site, knowing I'm not going to drop out any relays. Finally, test mode, I can put the panels into test mode by, again, simple turn of a key switch if I install a key switch inside of the panel. So I double click on test mode. Again, find those panel inputs we created earlier, starting with the office. Again, a single operator, single turn the key switch to make that input live. Again, just pick your zones with regards to the office. So in my case, that is zones just 1 and zone 3. This is entirely up to you regards your site. Do you want it audible or silent? If it was audible, the sounds will then operate for a further 3 seconds, and then the panel will then reset each time. I'll make this silent. I'll include call points and I'll center network. Again, bit site specific how you want to just set these last two up with regards to test time. And go next. And again, name this cause and effect. Test office zones. Okay, exactly the same for the warehouse now. Double click. Find the panel input for the warehouse. Okay, input 2. Again, single operator. Go next. Find my zones with regards to the office panel. In this case, that's zones 4, 5, and 6. Again, I'll have this a silent test. I'll include the call points and center network. And go next. Again, name the cause and effect. Okay, test warehouse zones and finish. Okay, so just go through the test zones. So the cause will be that input we created with regards to the office input via key switch. Once that becomes live, the effect of that, we'll put zones 1 and 3 into test. I mean, you could have a site that's got more zones in test, maybe 10, 15, 20 zones, that's fine. One turn of a key switch, and all your zones will then be in test mode. In my case, a silent test mode. Exactly the same with the warehouse. Once that input becomes live, whether it's via a key switch on the side of the panel, the effect of that will be a silent test. I'll put all my zones 4, 5, and 6 with regards to warehouse all into test mode. Okay, so as you can see, we've got the cause and effect tree with regards to the sound effects. We can disable the relays, and we can put the zones into test mode. All that we've left to do now is connect to the panel, panels 1 and panels 2, the office panel and the warehouse panel, with your laptop, and upload this configuration back to both panels. And once that is done, this cause and effect then will all be available to you. I would like to thank you for watching this video on the cause and effects on the Syncro AS panel. And for any more information and data sheets, please visit our website.
So again, guys, like I say, you can see how straightforward it is to, once you get into using those cause and effect wizard operators, how easy it is that you just basically create something. You need an input. What's that input going to do? It's going to operate that output. Especially in the disablement and the test function, you've got to create the input first, because on the action you've got inputs already. You've got call points, you've got smoke detectors, you have got inputs already. So all you need to do is select the input, whether it's a device or a zone, to then operate an output. Again, whether it's a particular sounder or a zone. Whereas the disablement in the test mode, you've got to create an input to be disablement or to be a test mode input, just so it's available to you when you go into the cause and effect wizard, you know. So you can see how straightforward. I think it's quite nice how the cause and effects works. The wizard kind of just helps you along, and then you name it, and then it kind of builds from that point on, really. So okay then, guys, I know it's been a long day, a lot to take in. I'm kind of thinking, gives you half a chance when you come across a Syncro panel, or you may have got something out of it you didn't before. Is there any questions at this stage before we move on?
Not at the moment, Lee. I just think I'd probably like to have a play with it, really, and I think that, and see how I get on. But that was very good. Thank you very, very much.
Yeah, thanks, James. I mean, like I say, I think it is one of them. You can see how we went around the LE2 software. It's not too daunting, the software. It is kind of laid out quite nice, you know. Yeah. The main thing to remember with cause and effects, especially for the action cause and effect, is take out default ring mode if you want it to operate in a particular way for you.
Yeah.
Because a lot of times the guys somebody will create a line of cause and effect to operate a relay, for example, to open a barrier gate in an office car park, just from the devices from the office and not a warehouse elsewhere on the premises. But they'll say, but the barrier keeps opening up. It's because they probably didn't untick the default ring mode, and it will open up every time, you know.
Yeah.
So okay. Yeah. Okay then, guys, like I say, it's a long day. Like I say, it's one of those, once you get playing with it, once you're more familiar with it, this course is really to give you a base understanding to then go from this point onwards, really. You know where I am. Get in touch with us, email, tech support, myself, anybody, and we're there to help you guys, okay? What I'll do for the next hour or so now is I'll get the certificates all ready. I'll get the download of this video together, and I'll send that over, and I'll send the Syncro AS resource pack over with all that information and videos in there as well. So there's quite a lot to download once I send that all over. Okay then, guys.
Super. Thank you very much, Lee.
Thank you very much.
Thank you. Cheers, James. Cheers, Georgia.
Amazing.
All the best.
Okay, bye. Thank you.
Thank you. All the best, Boris. Tasneem, all the best. You know where I am if you need me.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Bye.
Bye-bye, guys.
Bye-bye.